to have a financial breakthrough today, for the next 2-3 years, you have to be trusting God again. And so man begins to go through up and down. The child, health of the child, the paying of bills, and all of that became problems. And up till today, we are calling on God on a daily basis. Help me to solve my problem. Help. And many churches are built on just praying for people for their needs to be met. And the people do not understand and have not been taught that each one of us who are believers ought to become a problem solver for God. We go to houses and spaces and four walls seeking solution every Sunday, seeking solution every Wednesday, when what we ought to do is to actually connect back and tap power in those meetings so that we can solve problems. So by Genesis 6, like we said, verse 5, God was complaining. He said the wickedness of man was too much for him to bear. The thoughts of man became wicked continually. His imaginations were awkward. They were not what God wanted. And by Genesis chapter 6 verse 6, God said it repented him that he made man. God was not happy. He had problems with mankind in Genesis chapter 6. Subsequently, if you look in Exodus chapter 3, I believe, in chapter 3 verse 7, God had gotten the attention of Moses, and he sent Moses. And he said to Moses, I've heard the cry of the people, and I want you to go there to deliver the people from the hands of Pharaoh. Why didn't God just release these people? Why did he need Moses to go bring these people out? Because God had a problem in bringing out those people, and he needed a man who will help him solve that problem. Man was put on the surface of the earth to help God solve problems. God has given man all the authority to take charge of this earth, to dominate the forces of darkness, to dominate the enemy, and to keep the enemy at bay. And so when the enemy crosses the line and takes over the things of God, God is still going to need a man like Moses to say, help me go take them back. I will be with you in the realm of the spirit. I'll be with you spiritually. But physically, you have to do the work for me. So that happened to Moses. And you will see it in other accounts of other servants of God, Elijah, Elisha, and so on. But one scripture that I love so much and I'm passionate about is Isaiah chapter 59. From verse 1, you see God again through one of his prophets, Isaiah, complaining about situations on earth. By the way, all the prophets in the scriptures were helping God to tell the people his complaints. Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Jonah, Joel, Habakkuk, yes, Malachi, all the prophets, they were always the mouthpiece of God, of complaints of how God did not like what was going on earth. So I'm repeating again that God has problems that he wants to resolve. So back to Moses, God needed him to help him solve the problem. And back to Isaiah 59. So there was a listing and complaints of God, how wickedness was prevailing, how there was lack of justice in mankind's situation, how truthful people were becoming victims, how those who stood for justice were being made prey of. They were being ostracized. They were being, what's the word now? They were being ostracized. They are the ones that were facing the other side of, they were being jailed and all of that. So God complained from verse 1, Isaiah 59 from verse 1 to 15. But by verse 16, he said something that is awesome to me. That scripture says, and God looked all over the earth, and he saw no man. He could find no intercessor. Now that word intercessor, some of us have taken it only to be in prayers. Yes, prayer, there's nothing any believer or a servant of God can do without prayer. So all of us should pray. But the word intercessor means especially a stand between. It means one standing between God and man. It's not only in prayers. It's also in solving God's problems. Because if you look from verse 1 to 15, he had listed all kind of problems. And he wasn't looking for a man who would only pray about it, but someone who will help him to get the job done. So I'm saying that to show us from the scriptures that God needed an intercessor. He needed a stand between. He needed a man, he needed a woman who will face up to the injustice, who will face up to the wickedness, who will face up to the evil that are happening in our communities and in our cultures. And that man, by the help of the Spirit, will help God resolve these issues. Problem of orphans, problems of transportation, problems in our movie industries, the perversions, let me just put it out, perversions. God is looking for people who will help him solve these problems. And so, we see in this account that even though God has problems, he needs man to help him solve these problems. And ultimately, Jesus Christ came. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, all the servants of God that came, Elijah, I said Moses already, Elijah, Elisha, Isaiah, Habakkuk, Nehemiah, John the Baptist, Peter, Paul, all the people that God used in the Bible, they were being used of God to solve problems. You ought to be a problem solver. I know you're going through your challenges. I know you're having your own situations. And I want you to know, yes, we will always face one thing or the other. We have been given the power of dominion to fight offensives, to fight battles for God. Yes, that will happen. So, but we also need to take on the challenges that God is facing as his instrument, as his ambassadors. Just like the ambassador of the United States of America would stand for his country anywhere he's sent or posted to. The ambassador of Nigeria, whichever country he finds himself or she finds herself, should stand on behalf of his nation and speak the voice of his nation. So you need to be the ambassador of God. Whatever problems are in our communities ought to be solved by you and solved by me. We will continue in this message after this break. God bless you.